What can you learn from a billionaire and his remarkable book? A whole heck of a lot. And you are about to find out.
Welcome to the Motivation Show podcast, and get ready to be inspired, motivated, and achieve massive success. And now, your host, the mayor of motivation, Eli Marcus.
Our guest today is known as a Common-Sense Billionaire and CEO of the Red Apple Group. He started from humble beginnings and founded the very successful supermarket chain Gristedes, which he expanded from a small grocery store into a sprawling empire. He has gone on to be wildly successful in other industries, including real estate, energy, sports, and media as the owner of WABC Radio in New York City. His new book is titled, How Far Do You Want to Go? Lessons from a Common-Sense Billionaire. Warning, only read the book if you want to be wildly successful or curious how someone else becomes a billionaire. Let's dive right into this rags to riches story. Welcome to the Motivation Show, John Catsimatidis.
Well, thank you very much for having me, and it's very important. Yesterday, a couple of days ago, I did a thing with Governor Pataki at the Union League Club, and it was the first time I've ever been interviewed by a governor. And it was a lot of fun. We had 240 people, and we talked about New York City, New York State, the country, the world. We talked about entrepreneurship and success. And there was a 9-year-old kid there. I think my wife said to me, I think you made a difference in that kid's life. And, I'm also chairman of the Police Athletic League, and I've been working on it for 40 years. And Bob Morgenthau, I would say, he trained me. He talked to me for 40 years.
Former district attorney, right?
Yes, the district attorney, how to make a difference in the kids' lives in the inner circle. I grew up on 135th Street in Harlem, and I'm able to go to those PAL centers and look at those kids and say to them, well, I'm from here. I made it. And if you keep your nose clean, you can make it too. So writing the book has several directions. It has one, for my family and my kids, gives them an indication where they came from. 2, for the things that I'm dedicated to, like the kids of our inner city. And if we can help make a difference in a few lives, then it's all worth doing.
I admire that because so many people are successful and they don't give back to the community. And you're a relatable guy because you grew up there in West Harlem from very humble beginnings, rags to riches, as your book says. And here you are, you understand the meaning of contribution. You understand the meaning of community, and helping a 9-year-old's got to feel as good as maybe making $1 billion. No, John?
Well, it makes you, you go home and it makes your heart feel good that you've done your duty to God and your country. And helping the kids, to me, is very important because our country's future, our city's future is based on those kids and making sure they grow up right. That's why I'm a big supporter of certain things when it comes to kids. I was, with the Police Athletic League, I was against boxing because people were just making money on boxing and didn't care about the kids. And you know what happens? If you hit the kids' brains, they're in formation from the age of 10 or 12 to the ages of 22, 23. And if you hit these kids in the head enough times, they can lose up to 15% of their IQ. So you may think you're doing good for the kids, teaching them how to box, but guess what? If they lose 15% of their IQ, you're ruining them for life, the entire life. And the other thing I'm very particular on, with marijuana.
It's everywhere in New York these days, no?
Yes, but kids between the ages of 10 and 25, talk to your neurologist. If you get these kids hooked on it or on it, guess what? It ruins another 15% of their intelligence. And you're ruining it for life. Marijuana, if you're 50, 60, 70 years old, you want to smoke and smoke all you want because, you want to be but the kids, I think, the kids deserve a future, and you can't turn them into dumbheads.
I can't agree with you more, and those are good lessons. Tell us what life was like growing up in West Harlem, John.
Well, it was a mixed community. I was in West Harlem by City College. I went to PS 192, and we had Irish, we had Hispanics, Dominicans, Blacks. We had almost Italians, Greeks. We had almost everybody. And we all played together. We all had a good time together. There was no such thing as prejudice. And there was no such thing as crime.
A true melting pot. Yeah, I like that.
It was a great melting pot. You know where the crime came from?
Where?
I grew up in that area in the 1950s and 1960s. Zero crime, very little crime. We're not afraid to do anything. It came after Vietnam, where we sent our soldiers to Vietnam, made a lot of them into dope addicts, and they come back. And that's where the problem began. That's where the problem began in Harlem. That's where West Harlem, East Harlem. And it's not just the 50,000 soldiers we lost in Vietnam, it's how many we lost mentally.
Good point. And we don't have enough resources, unfortunately, to have taken care of them. We should have focused more, right?
Yes.
Coming back from the war. So what inspired you to write this book? I mean, you've done, seemed like everything on this planet. You've got so many diverse businesses. And what are the main takeaways that you wish for our audience to learn from reading it?
Like I said, I wanted my kids and grandkids someday to know where they came from and to have, we're American, but I want them to have respect for their forefathers. Because if you don't have respect for your forefathers, then we don't have anything. So that was one aspect. The other aspect is to help make a difference in young kids. You know who's buying this book? A lot of grandfathers, a lot of grandmothers for their grandkids, a lot of fathers, mothers for their kids. And we're hoping that it'll make a difference in these kids' lives. And that was very important to me. Someday, where if I have grandkids and that they know where their origins are from. I remember before my dad passed away that we sat down and we wrote everything down from the 1860s about his great-grandfather, about his grandfather. So it makes a difference. We did a DNA test. I'm 28% Italian, 60% Macedonian Greek, 6% Jewish, and I guess the rest of it is whatever it is, Middle East or whatever that area is around.
No wonder why you love everybody. You're a little bit of everybody.
A little bit of everybody. By the way, the definition of my 6% Jewish is it'll be either one of my great-grandmothers or great-grandfathers was Jewish. So that's the definition of that. That's 6%. That's what 6% means.
Fascinating. So, John, what do you believe are your secrets, or maybe, even not so secret principles that have enabled you to build not only a successful business empire, but as your book alludes to, a very successful personal life as well?
Well, my parents taught me, A, never do anything to shame the family name, regardless. B, when my father came over, his two brothers, by the way, my two grandfathers came from the other side in 1913. And one of them died in the pandemic of 1918. My father's two brothers came over in the 30s. And when my father finally came over in 1949, after I was 6 months old, his two brothers had to sign on a dotted line that if he couldn't pay the rent, they would have to pay it. So my father worked two jobs in order to not have to go to his brothers or not to shame himself on asking his two brothers. So my father, and the other day I drove by it. He worked at Longchamp's restaurants at 42nd Street and Lexington Avenue. And every time,
Horn and Hardart, I think, right?
No, it was the corner. The corner was Longchamp's, And a few stores in was Horn and Hardart, where I used to go and buy a peanut butter sandwich and a Coke for 25 cents between the two of them. But every time I drive by 42nd and Lex, I have a tear in my eye. But he worked Monday through Friday as a busboy. And the reason he worked as a busboy is he didn't speak English properly. You know, it was a high-end restaurant. But on Saturdays and Sundays, because he spoke fluent Italian, he would go to Astoria and Long Island City, work in the Italian restaurants as a waiter, and earn a few extra dollars.
That's common work ethic, which, people ask me all the time, what are the secrets to success? It's like, don't be afraid to put some elbow grease to it, and don't be too humble to think that, you can't start as a busboy. So that's a great lesson, right? You take what you can get and you do the best that you can at it. And, if you're a busboy, you become the best busboy on the planet, right, John?
Absolutely.
I love that.
When my father retired, by the way, the interesting story, his boss at Longchamps was a guy named Jan Mitchell, and he wrote a book. I remember my father bringing it home, and he had like 25 or 30 Longchamps restaurants, and he also owned Luchas.
Which was on 14th Street, right? Famous restaurant there.
I remember when I saw him once in Sag Harbor, in front of the American restaurant there, and I shook his hand. I say, "I'm glad to see you." He was about 98 years old, and I said, "Do you know who I am?" And he didn't say anything, and I started to walk away, and he said, "Catsimatidis." I got one other interesting story. Jan Mitchell, the son of a busboy. When I moved into Fifth Avenue, I moved into Jan Mitchell's apartment on Fifth Avenue. And when I met his two sons at Rabbi Schneier's dinner, they wanted to come back and see the bedrooms that they grew up in. So the son of a busboy got to move to Fifth Avenue to the boss's apartment. It goes one step further. The same building. Ready for this? Sitting down?
Yeah.
That Nixon was not allowed to go into.
Oh, wow.
And then my daughter marries President Nixon's grandson, and he moved in.
Full circle.
So interesting stories, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. In your book, you have as part of your subtitle, the idea of common sense. What is your idea of common sense that you allude to in the subtitle of your book?
Well, the common sense is what people look at things and how to do the right thing. It's not about being a Democrat, not about being a Republican. It's about doing the right thing.
Which you've been both, right?
Well, I was a Bill Clinton Democrat. I ran Bill Clinton's campaigns in New York area for quite a few years. And, I started as a Democrat. I ran, when I was 14 years old, Congressman William Fitzryan's campaign on the West Side. I was 14 years old. And when I was 17, he gave me the congressional nomination to West Point, but I didn't go there. And then I helped run Jerry Nadler's campaign for borough president against David Dinkins. And that goes into another funny story later on.
Mayor David Dinkins, yep.
But then since my daughter married a Republican, and we wanted to have peace around the Thanksgiving Day table, when I ran for mayor, I ran as a Republican liberal.
Very interesting. Well, I like your idea that in the book you talk about the fact that, it's not so much Republican or Democrat, it's that we got to get along and we got to talk to each other and we got to communicate.
That's common sense. And I always talk about Newt Gingrich and Bill Clinton, that they didn't like each other, but they sat down and they worked it out. And the deficit came down from $5.5 trillion down to $5 trillion, something that never happened before. And they work it out as Americans, not as Democrats and Republicans. And Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan were famous for that too.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a better world if we can all just get down and sit down at that table, regardless of which sides of the fence that we're on. So, John, there's this incredible quote in your book that was your public school's slogan, and I'm a motivational guy. I love it. It says, "Never let it rest until our good gets better and our better gets best." What does that mean to you, and how have you applied this lesson?
Well, on page 255 of my book, And you can buy my book in Amazon. You can buy my book in Barnes and Noble. And me and Len Riggio, who built Barnes and Noble, we both went to Brooklyn Tech High School. And we were the first ones to start a $10 million campaign for a public high school. We raised $10 million for Brooklyn Tech High School. And you could also buy it on WABCRadio.com. And if you buy it on WABCRadio.com, I autograph all the copies that are bought through there.
I've got one of those autographed copies, and I'm urging people, something about an autographed copy, John, that actually
it's worth twice as much as what the price was.
I agree. But not only that, it sort of kicks in what I call like a law of attraction. It's like you're kind of more vested into the book. Somebody signed it for you, and it kind of rubs off on you. I really believe in that, So to me, it's like for me, the autographed copies are the ones that I cherish most. So the fact that you even allow that or even have that on your website is very unusual.
Yes, somebody the autographed copies are going for $50 on eBay. So somebody's making a profit.
And yours are what, like $30, right?
Yeah, it was 25, 30. I don't know 30. What Amazon sells it for.
That's a good deal. So in the book, you also talk about that you were insecure in public school. Hard to believe that John Catsimatidis was insecure. Insecure.
Well, with a name like Catsimatidis, there was not many Catsimatidis around.
Yeah.
People were always cutting the name short. Like there's no such thing as a Pappas. It used to be a bigger, longer name. So all the big, long names cut it down to Pappas. And we never cut down our name.
Wasn't going to be John Katz, huh?
Well, when I ran for mayor, it was Katz.
Okay.
It was easier to yell out Katz, Katz, Katz. And I remember one time I was in Queens, and our team was yelling Katz, Katz, Katz. And on the other side, coming the other way, was Melinda Katz, that was quasi-married to Curtis Lewa, yelling Katz, Katz, Katz. And we intersected each other.
So, John, what role does collaborating with others play in your life? And do you have like a prime example that comes to mind of a particularly mutually successful collaboration that stands out to you?
Well, I believe in communications. I believe in talking. And whether it's Democrats and Republicans, I believe they should all sit down together. And we work very closely with other radio stations. We're syndicated in over 250 stations around the country. And our stream can be heard in 50 states, 173 countries. It was 172. But when my nanny retired and went to the Philippines, she couldn't get our signal. So we made it. Now it's 173 countries.
That's a big addition. She's got to listen for sure. So can you tell us about what is the sink or swim theory you learned from your cousin in Greece when you visited there after coming to America and going back to the island that you were born in?
Oh, and, I didn't know how to swim. Forget about it. I'm the kid from Harlem. We didn't have any swimming pools or go to the beaches much. So we were on the dock on the island I was born with, and we went there to spend 2 weeks. And my cousin taught me how to swim, threw me off the pier.
That'll get you to swim quick.
Well, what was the old expression? Sink or swim.
Sink or swim. There you go.
Well, Eli, I enjoyed talking to you and look forward to talking to you more.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. And if there's anything else you want to add and let people know about besides your book?
Well, I think we could do a follow-up on this, and we'll talk some more.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, John. You've been a pleasure to speak to.
If you would like to inquire about having Eli motivate your team, speak at your event, or coach you personally for massive success, email themotivationshow@gmail.com. That's themotivationshow@gmail.com.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.